All right, well, thank you everybody for attending. Today's webinar is a product demonstration for SOLIDWORKS Composer. It's going to be interactive and video animations created with SOLIDWORKS Composer, presented by me, Scott Woods, Product Manager for Composer and Inspection, and this is hosted by Hawk Ridge Systems. So let's go ahead and get started here. SOLIDWORKS Composer, animations made easy. And you always hear this, as easy as 1, 2, 3, and it's kind of corny, but in Composer, it's absolutely true. For animations, you really don't have to learn how to animate to create a very nice-looking, very professional-looking animation. It is as easy as 1, 2, 3. You explode out your components. You basically make an exploded view. Then you tell the parts to go home, and then they'll automatically go into location, and then you simply drag and drop those views onto the timeline to then create the animation. So when you develop anything in Composer, like step-by-step IKEA-style assembly instructions, operation manuals, anything like that, you've actually developed animation without even knowing it. And in this presentation, we'll go over how you can utilize work you've already done to output very professional-looking videos and interactive animations. Okay, so animation in Composer is about 80% automated. You can repurpose the steps from any of your old Composer documents, and I put 80% there. It's probably closer to 90 or 95% automated. Depends on what you're doing. Sometimes there's a little bit of touch-up at the end just to kind of clean everything up, make it look good, which we'll go over today, and then you output it to whatever format you like. The interactive portion of the animation, I put it 99% free because once you make an animation, the interactive portion is just a file save as exe, and it's done. So very easy. We also have full keyframe control in the animation timeline. For those of you who like to get your hands a little bit dirtier and actually jump into the timeline and control things frame by frame, we can totally do that in Composer as well. And I'll touch on that a little bit here today. This is mostly going to be about the automated portions of it. Okay, so last slide before we jump into Composer. What does this create? Assembly animations, operational animations, and marketing animations. So basically we have two kind of distinct types of animations, and I'll cover both today. So the first category is assembly and operational animations. And that's what you're seeing on the left slide there, which is basically procedural steps where you're going to take a product, explode it out, put it together step by step, and then output a video. And then the marketing animations is more like you're seeing on the right, where it's very professional looking, it's very, very clear, and you just simply create like a fly-through or whatever you want in the animation. So there's kind of two different ways of using this. All right, so let's go ahead and jump to Composer. And I typically start these webinars fresh, right? So we start with a blank document, import, and we go from there. This one's a little bit different just because in my past webinars I have covered the steps, creating on the left here. So I'm going to cover that in a little bit today, but we only have a half an hour to work with, so kind of want to speed this along a little bit. So I have some stuff that's been pre-made. But basically we have our RC car, and we have kind of a nice looking marketing image there. And then we go in to create some kind of step-by-step animation. So here we have an isolated engine, maybe change the view. And you'll see that all these are views in the view pane here that have been pre-assigned to be assembled. And if any of you haven't seen any of our past webinars where we go over how to assemble this, I'm going to touch on that just for a couple minutes, just so everybody is kind of at the same level here. But you can see that just like that, they go together. Now that looks like an animation, right? But I didn't create an animation at all to make this. I just simply exploded the parts out, told them to go back home. Composer did the rest and did all the in-between movements. So let's say that we want to make an exploded view of like this guy here. So what we would do, let's go to the Assembly tab, go ahead and do a assembly select on that component. We can either isolate it. I was going to isolate it, but instead I think I will just pull it out from the model here like this. So we take it, and we'll kind of move it out. It's going to hide the bill of materials. And then I want to do a quick explode view on this guy. So this linear translate, explode, and we simply grab that, drag it out. And what I like about this tool is it always leaves one part kind of stationary where it's supposed to be. And that's really nice because when we go to actually develop that animation, we simply click on the parts we want to go back home, go to restore neutral position, and they go into location, and then you simply go over here and you create a snapshot. So this is how animation is developed. It's identical to developing any other kind of procedural step-by-step content out of Composer. Create an exploded view, select your components, tell them to go home. Select some more components. Actually, yeah, this one probably is installed first, but we'll go ahead and stick these guys on. We're going to restore those. They go into location, create a step. Select those guys, location, step. Last one, location, create a step. And then once our assembly has been assembled, and we'd probably want to take this guy just to be a little bit more accurate here, pull it out, and go to assembly, assembly select mode, click that guy, tell it to go home as well. It goes into place, create a step, take this guy here, and do the same thing, and something like that. So I mean, it really is that easy. Basically, I just blew it apart, put the things back together, and that's it. But take a step back and look at what I just did, and Composer is going to animate every step of that process. So it goes together, 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 so forth and so on until the whole thing is assembled. Now I have all of these steps here. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop just in case we need it. There we go. Okay, so I've just created an animation. Now I just need to put in the timeline so I can either output a video or a series of images or my interactive content. So if I go to this little button right here, right now it's on the Polaroid Pictures. If I click on it, I go to Film Strip. That puts me in animation mode. You'll see that the timeline by default isn't shown. You just go up here, you right-click, timeline, and you got it right there. So now I can go ahead and I can start dragging my steps into the timeline here. And what I typically do is, if I was doing this, for a job, I would take my step, I would drag it in, and I would drag it in twice, about a second apart from each other. Because you'll see when you do that, when you show the animation, they have this nice little pauses where they pause before they move again. And so what I'll do is about a second apart, and each one of these I'll bring in twice. And it's not necessary, I just think it looks a lot nicer. And when you play with this, I think you'll understand what I mean by that. Because if you start dragging these views in without doubling them up, then everything starts moving around and it gets a little confusing. And this way, you got these nice pauses that really help define what's going on. Okay, so I'm almost done here. You'll see this is just a step that I'm taking. This is simulating an old document. So just say I had this old assembly instruction that I saved as a PDF or something like that, and I've had sitting on the network for 2 years. Now I can go and take it. I can grab the views that I made, back when, drag them into the timeline, just like this, and I'm done. Now if I rewind it and I play it, we can go ahead and see this animation play out. If it's moving too fast or too slow, we can simply go down here on the timeline. We can make a selection. Oops, I didn't mean to grab that. Let me go ahead and fast forward it here. You can make a selection, and then there'll be a little toggle where you can then shrink or expand this timeline to either speed everything up or slow it down. We have full time. There we go, last piece went on. We have full keyframe control, so if you zoom in, you can see that each one of these are broken down into individual frames. And if I wanted, I could go ahead and at any point, let's say that, I don't know, at this stage here, for whatever reason, I wanted these guys to go in the other direction before being assembled. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you'll see that since I did that, they go to that point, and then they reverse direction and go to where they go. I can also change the camera angle. So let's say at this point in time, I wanted to look at this from a different perspective. something like that. Create the little camera key there, and just like that, the camera will spin around. I'll look at that, and I want to double the camera up twice as well, so the camera stays in the location, and then swings back to where it's supposed to be, and then does its thing. And just like that, this is ready for publication. So what I would do at this point is I would have to choose how I want to save this as a video. The easiest way to do it is to go to Workshops, Video, and then do a Save Video As. And what it's going to do is it's going to take the entire timeline, it's going to save that out as a video. Let's see how long we have, about 30 seconds. So if I put this on my desktop as an AVI, this is going to pop up. And this is typically where people get confused and they say, okay, well, you know, what codec do I use? I really don't use a codec at all. There's a lot of options here that come pre-canned with the software. Every codec, in my opinion, kind of has its own set of complications and flickering and stuff like that. If you do the full frames uncompressed and just save that out as a video, AVI, and this will take, you know, roughly, I don't know, 45 seconds or so. And while that's doing, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the PowerPoint and talk about kind of where we're at. So we're going to let this render out, but the key is to do it uncompressed. You're going to have a huge video file, like one that you can't really do anything with, but then we're going to compress that down to a manageable size, and we're not going to lose any quality that way. So jumping back to the PowerPoint, let's see where we're at. So basically we did, just as a recap here, we did step-by-step assembly views. And that's just taking sub-assemblies, pulling them apart from the model, exploding them, just making a basic exploded view, and then telling those items to go back home. That's as simple as selecting it apart, saying restore neutral position, it knows where it belongs, it goes there, and you create a new step of the procedure. Once you're happy with all those, you drag those into the timeline. You can position them at any point in time that you like to speed up or slow down the animation. And then, once we're done with that, we save out as a video or image sequence. I haven't went over the image sequence yet. That's my next step. Right now I'm saving out that video. So let's turn it back to Composer and see where we are at. All right, so this is going to take a few minutes, but I can stop it. I should be able to stop it, and it will still save out what I already did, which is nice. So going into my desktop, you'll see that I have this file. And I stopped it prematurely because I just didn't want to wait for it to finish with this webinar just because we have limited time. And we'll see that this file is rather large. It's 304 megabytes. And that is bigger than I would like for a video of this size especially. So my trick is to use this program called Handbrake. And Handbrake is absolutely free. You can get it off like download.com. It's an open source program. It's safe to use, and it's simple, and it's just a great program. So if you go source, video file, and I grab the one that I just made, and I just want to go ahead and specify where I want the new one to be saved. We'll call this video animation, something like that. I typically use the default settings. MP4, it saves as an H.264, which is a video file that is compatible with nearly every device out there, you know, iPhones, PCs, you name it, iPads, and different Android devices and stuff. So website content, it's just a way to produce a video in the most user-friendly fashion possible, and it'll take huge multiple gigabit videos and compress them into just very manageable size. Like this one here, it went from 300 and something megs to 210 kilobytes, and I still have really good video quality. And there we go. So there's the video that I saved out, and that's called Handbrake. It's an excellent program. I recommend it to all my customers. And now we're going to go back to Composer and publish this out as a series of images. So now that we have this animation developed, we can save it as a video. My preferred method is actually to go to the high resolution image output. Here we can specify exactly our frame size. So 1280 by 700, 719 in this case, it's 16:9 aspect ratio. With the DPI of 300, I'd probably make that about 6 or so, or 600, just to get a little bit better quality. You go to multiple, animation, images per second. I changed that to 25 or 30. 25 is about standard. And we just say, hey, we want to do all of it, or a selection, or maybe some just let's go from like 1 second to 3 seconds or something like that. Save as. We'll say create a new folder, save that, and it's going to go through and it's going to render these images. And while it's rendering, I'm going to go ahead and show them. So here's the images that are being rendered out right now. And they're very high quality, and you get just a series of all these images. So if you really want to make the best animation possible, this is what I would recommend. Going to the image output, outputting a series of images for all of your frames, and then bringing these into a program like Windows Movie Maker. I know there's one for Mac as well that's free. There's Adobe Premiere that works pretty good. You just dump all the images in there, save it as a video, and you can get that ultra high definition output if you want to do that. If you're just making website videos and stuff like that, just output as an uncompressed, use Handbrake to convert it, and you'll be good to go. So it's kind of two different reasons why you would do this. Okay, so let's peek back into the slide here. And where are we at? So output is video or image sequence, so that's kind of our final, right? We're done with the animation. However, if we want to do interactive animation and we want to send this to the shop floor, send it to our customers, and they want to be able to rotate it and click around and really interact with the document, we can do that in just a few easy steps here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add what's called event linking. And event linking can be anything. I can set this up so I click on a tire and it opens up a website, opens up a drawing of that tire, you name it. There's really no limitations to that, and I'll go ahead and show that to better explain. And we're going to go ahead and output it as an interactive animation. At the end, we're just going to go ahead and update everything and show how everything that we make in this presentation is still associative back to the SOLIDWORKS assembly. So let's go ahead and jump into here. And let's set this up now for interactive output. And really right now, I could just say File, Save As, Package, and I could save this as a self-executable exe, and whoever opens that will see everything that I made here. They'll get all of the toolbars on the left here and the timeline controls, and basically have kind of a version of Composer, but it's just view only, where they can play the animations and see what's going on. But we can control this a little bit nicer just to get better experience out of it. So to do that, for the event linking, let's see, I go here. Easiest way, our easiest tools for event linking is the automated ones, and I'll show the automated and the manual. So here's Author 2D. If I go to All Buttons, and I just stick these somewhere down at the bottom there. And by default, they come in a little small. I'll go ahead and turn off the timeline just so we have a little more real estate. And what you want to do is you want to set them, go over to width in the properties, and I typically make these like 25 or something, just to make them a little bit bigger. They will merge, like cross over each other. But if you take a magnetic line, we can take this line, snap to them, and then move them wherever we space them however we want, something like that. Okay, so by default, what these buttons are is they're a way to go to the next page. So I can click on that, they go to the next page of this interactive animation. So I want to take these buttons and push it to all the pages. So I grab them, scale down or scroll down, select everything. This little button there, it just pushes that data to all of my views or all my pages. And now I've created an interactive experience that anybody who views this document will be able to click on these buttons and go through the entire process. You can also control, and kind of like a table of content, and control what people can do and if they can skip steps or not allow them to. And by doing that, you just go to a view that you want to use as like a table of content and select views that you find important. I'm just going to select a few at random here just to get the point across. I don't know, these guys. hold down Control, drag them into the view. That places those thumbnails. I'm going to go ahead and update this guy, and then our magnetic line, which is always our lifesaver here, we snap it in, take these guys, kind of position them something like that, just to stagger them out, magnetic line, and snap to them. Just like that. Like that. Okay. So now I have a full interactive experience, and this was the automated version. If you want a manual version, what you do in that case is you would select a like a text or a part. In this part, I actually want to have a little text block that somebody clicks on it, and it's going to play a section of the timeline. So what I'm going to do here is I want to say play animation. And again, this is all optional, but just nice little tools that you can use to really spice up this interactive experience. So I have play animation, and what this is going to do is it's going to jump into the timeline, and it's going to play a section of the timeline for animation. So now I just need to specify that. So if I go back to the timeline, and I jump down to, I don't know, let's say, just kind of scroll this and find a spot that we like. So let's say we want to play from this point here, which is, we'll call this start 01, and we want to play it all the way to, let's just play it to here. We'll call this end 01. And the important part is just to remove the markers that are in between these two markers, because we don't want them interfering with our animation. So we have a start position and end position, and now I want to specify that when this button is clicked in the view, it's going to play this section of time, but I also want to get back to the view, so I'm just going to select this view, drag into the timeline, so we have this nice little image here that will bring us back to our views. Okay, now I go to my view, I say play animation, and let's go ahead and link this to that guy. So to do that, there's our event links. This is how we do it manually. Now keep in mind, I can say that I want to open up a file and have it open up an image or a drawing or a PDF or anything like that. I can have it go to a website. If I had something online and I wanted to point people to, you click on that, opens up the browser, navigates to the website that you want them to. You can jump to different views of this document. There's a lot going on here. This is what we go to for that marker sequence that we made, which is the start of 1 to end of 1. There we go. So now I'm ready to save this as an interactive file and test it out. So just file, save as, package, and it is as easy as that to save out an interactive document. So what it's doing is it's taking this entire Composer document, it's compressing it into a file that has the player built right in. So with this interactive document, there's no need to have anything installed. So I have this self-executable file. You go and open it up, and you can send this to anybody. They don't have to install anything special on the machines. It opens up all the content that you made, and you'll see the experience that I added in here. You can specify to have these off as well, so you don't have control there. But there's my marketing image. I go to my next button. I'm just going to jump into this view. I can jump to different areas of the assembly instructions. I can play the animation that goes through, plays the to play. I get a view here that takes me back to that step, and then I can go ahead and click on these guys and jump to any position that I want. Keep in mind this is all 3D, right? So somebody could come in, they could take a look, and they could really check this out. We can also control this. We can say you can't rotate, you can't pan, you can't zoom in, you can't make selections, you can't hide things, or you can allow all that. Same with measurement. You can allow or disallow measurement. So there's a lot that we can control with this interactive animation. Okay, so last thing on the list here is just to update. So this is going to take about a minute. Looks like we've got about 5 minutes remaining here, so we have enough time to do this last little part. So what I want to do is I want to show how, and I'm just going to do a quick update, so this will update while I'm speaking here. Basically, I'm taking an updated version of this entire assembly. This version has quite a few changes. The cover is red. The tailpipe is a little bit bigger. The air filter is a little bit bigger, and I think there's a few other changes too. There's like a pulley in here I should have pointed out. Oh, you can see it here in the little previews. It's black. I think the new one's like red or blue, and it's slightly larger. And so we've done a few changes. I think we've got rid of the roll cage too. And what I wanted to show is that when you develop anything in Composer, and we have our steps that we put together, animation we put together, anything you do in the document is still associated back to SOLIDWORKS or whatever CAD file you used. SOLIDWORKS, of course, works perfectly with Composer, but you don't have to use SOLIDWORKS files. You can use Rhino files or step files or ProE files or object files. Anything you find on the internet, especially on like GrabCAD and stuff, 99% of the time you can bring those directly into Composer, and you can use them in conjunction with your SOLIDWORKS assembly. So I could bring like trees and background environments and stuff like that right in here as well. When you go to update, it points back to the original CAD files and updates everything you did in Composer. And so all the steps that we did, even the ones that I added myself today, are going to be updated with these changes that are taking place in SOLIDWORKS. And it should be done in just a couple seconds here. But keep in mind, this also can update all of our publications, because like the exe I saved out, I just go and save out another exe, overwrite that one. If I wanted to save this as a PDF document, I would simply save it as a PDF document, probably rev it or replace the old one, and so forth. All the images will be updated as well. You just output all the images. All those images in my folder that I created will be updated. Anything linking to those will also be updated. So you create this really associative environment workflow that just works from CAD all the way to your end deliverable, which is your publication. All right, so let's go ahead and just thumb through these guys just to show that there's no smoke and mirrors here. Basically, it went through, updated the geometry, updated, there's the handle, larger air filter, a little bit larger pipe there. I think it's, maybe that pipe didn't adjust, I could be wrong. These heat sinks are now green and they're slightly larger. Going down to the ones that I created, you'll see that all of these have been updated as well. If we go to the animation and we play the animation, let's go ahead and turn that timeline on. Go ahead and play the animation. I'm going to go ahead and turn off this guy here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off these other guys. Sometimes this happens. They'll just Composer doesn't really know which part you want to have on or off in the animation, so it'll kind of turn everything on. It's super easy though, just to go there and turn things off. Like these buttons, we probably don't want them in here. Jump into the collaboration panel and turn those off. But you'll see that the animation I did has remained, and all the steps that I did are still here. Go ahead and change this guy like that, and there we go. So I mean, within just a couple minutes, I was able to update this animation, which is unheard of in the animation world. Typically, you make an animation and you're stuck with it. If you want to update it, you have to go through every frame, make all these little tweaks, try to change things so it doesn't explode on you, and it becomes a nightmare, especially if you have like made some relations going on and now you've updated the geometry and you have animation based off of that. It just becomes a nightmare. We're in Composer, it doesn't care about any of that, it just works. And there we go, very visual communication and be able to get the point across. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. And so basically we went through this whole list, did the step-by-step views, jumped to the timeline, output our image sequence, added event linking, and then output our interactive exe document. And then we went through updated, and everything in Composer updated. If I wanted to update these deliverables, I would just go back through, output those images, and then re-output that exe, and you're done. Okay, so that wraps up our webinar for today. It's animations and interactive and video animations in Composer. This is our calendar for the rest of the month, and as you'll see, we have inspection next Friday. I'm sorry, next Wednesday. So today we also have our Sim Express and Flow Express webinar. It's going to take place at 11 if you want to attend that. Next Wednesday, I'll be back here for inspection and doing the inspection demonstration. That will be next Wednesday. And then next Wednesday, we also will have our ChemWorks, and that will wrap it up for this month. And we'll have a new calendar coming out for next month. Okay, brings us back to the top, so you guys have our information if you need to email us or anything like that. Thank you for attending. Everybody have a great day. I'm going to go ahead and leave this open for the next 5 minutes or so, just in case anybody has any questions. Feel free to ask, and we'll answer them. Thank you.